There's one member who has indicated that they would like to put a question to you in reference to your statement. MP Dunkley, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to you and colleagues and the listening audience. To the Honorable Minister. Minister, I think it was on the bottom of page 1 that you read that imports have increased threefold over the period you referred to. For clarification, are you referring to total volume of imports or the total number of people actually importing?
Good day, member. Thank you for your question, and I think it's the volume of imports.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I could ask if the honourable member would check that number, because if the total
supplementary question.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. So, if the total volume of imports has increased threefold, why is the economy struggling so much?
Mr. Speaker, the response to that would be that the revenue that would be collected would have to be determined. I mean, the member is saying that the economy would grow in accordance to the revenue that would have been collected, but I would have to look to see what categories that would be. There could be areas where there may not have been revenue collected. So if he would like to have a breakdown of that, that is something that we can supply. But at this stage, I would not have that information on hand.
Thank you. I would appreciate the information. Second supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Does the Honourable Minister believe that the volume of imports is a good gauge for the health of an economy?
Mr. Speaker, I think that gauges for the economy can be left to the person responsible for finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those answers are noted.
No further questions?
On this matter, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, that's the only member that indicated they had a question for you. So, members, thank you for the indulgence on allowing the minister to go first. And as she goes to the funeral, I'm sure she'll be taking the well wishes from all of us here at Parliament at this sad occasion. Minister, thank you. Let's go back to the order of statements. The first statement this morning was from the Deputy Premier. Deputy Premier, you have two members who wish to ask a question of you. The first is from MP Pearman. MP Pearman, would you like to put your question? MP Pearman?
Apologies, Mr. Speaker. He has unfortunately just been pulled away from his desk at this moment.
I'll go to the next member, and if he's back afterwards, he can put his question. The next member, Deputy Premier, is MP Dunkley. Would like to put questions to you. MP Dunkley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Deputy Premier, in regards to Blue Shield, what will be the cost going forward to Bermuda, and what expenses are picked up and paid for by the UK?
Thank you for the question. That will be determined by the assessment that we will receive as a result of the visit of the team that came from the UK. Those costs are determined, but this is a program that is fully funded by the UK government at this time, and there are no determinate costs that are associated with the Bermuda government to this point.
Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary, Mr. Speaker, to the Honourable Deputy Premier. Can the Honourable Deputy Premier please provide some background detail on how the Blue Shield program will be managed and run? In other words, what will be the organizational structure, including people from the UK and people from Bermuda?
Again, as I outlined in my statement, we received a visit from the team, the marine management team in the UK to come and do an assessment that will determine all those issues. But as it relates to what I can tell you right now, the management of our participation in Blue Shield locally will be handled by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Second question, Mr. Speaker.
Question, go ahead.
So would the Honorable Deputy Premier say that we're still at the infancy stages as far as the final organizational structure and who will actually manage the program?
Yes. But I've answered the question that the local management will be done by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The scoping work that is being done and the assessment that's being done by the UK personnel who was here will give further detail as to how that will be ultimately carried out.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker. This is a laudable program. Obviously, the waters around Bermuda are an important resource for us to enhance and protect. So, Honorable Deputy Premier, do you believe that the Department of Energy and Natural Resources will require more human resources or resources to manage this program effectively going forward?
You make reference to the Department of Energy. That's not the department that's dealing with this matter.
Right.
The Department of Environment and Natural Resources.
Environment, and yes, DENR.
Yes. The answer is no.
So to be clear, supplementary, they can accomplish this work with the current resources.
Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Further question?
No, Mr. Speaker, not on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Premier, let me just see if Mr. Pearman, MP Pearman.
I am, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Thank you,
Deputy Pearman.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister and Deputy Premier. In your statement, you refer to the latest project being funded by the Bluebell program to protect and enhance our territorial waters. The Bluebell program funding, that will be UK funding, will it?
Yes.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary, yes.
Do you envisage that there will be any Bermuda government funding as well, or will it be solely UK funding?
At this point, there is no determination that there's going to be any need for Bermuda government funding.
Further supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Thank you. At page 2 of your statement, you refer to assistance from our neighbors, the bottom of page 2. Is that a reference to the U.S.? And if so, are the U.S. providing funding for this as well, or is it solely UK funding?
There is work being done by the U.S., but they are not providing any funding in relation to Blue Shield.
Thank you. Second question, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Yes, at page 4 of your statement, you refer to the need to undertake assessment and gap analysis. A needs assessment and gap analysis are your precise words. What do you currently see as the needs and the gaps?
That will be determined by the persons who came here.
Supplementary.
That's why they were here to do it. They will inform us with their report.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Supplementary. Will you be involved in that determination as well, or will the Bermuda government be involved in that determination as well?
They will work with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources to deal with those issues once their report is completed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Deputy Premier, those are the questions for you, and thank you for your participation, members. The next statement that has questions indicated this morning is the Minister of Works in reference to your statement on Tynes Bay, and MP Canadair. Would you like to put your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On page 3, just wanted to find out, the honourable member mentions to the second to last paragraph, to that end, we have secured the services of a project engineer to lead the project. I'm just wondering if you could tell us, is this a firm or is this an individual? And who is the firm or individual that we have taken on as a project engineer?
I'll remember is an individual, not a firm.
Finish the question.
Second, supplementary or second question?
No, I asked him my first question. Who is it?
His name?
Is it within house? Is it within government?
No, we hired him on as a consultant.
Okay, so who's the consultant?
I don't know the person's name, I don't remember. I don't know the name of the individual, but we have taken somebody.
Supplementary?
Supplementary, yes?
I'm just trying to understand. The minister's hired a consultant and he doesn't know who it is?
The actual name, it's in-house. I can get that name for you.
The minister is undertaking to provide the name for you. So we'll endeavor that the minister will provide that to you at some point.
Yeah.
Supplementary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at what cost did this consultant come at?
Let me get it for you.
Will you be able to get that now, Minister, or would you like to supply it later?
I can get it to right now.
Okay.
The total amount is 170 per year, thousand.
The supplementary, that was your two supplementaries. We have a second question?
Sir, no, that's fine, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I will get that name for you if it makes it different for you, I remember.
Okay. Minister, that was the only member who had a question for you, so we thank you both for your participation. The next statement this morning, with an indication of a question, is that for the Minister of Labor. Minister of Labor, the Opposition Whip would like to put a question to you. Opposition Whip?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, Minister. Good morning, listening public. Would the Honorable Minister please clarify how much has this first phase of the project cost at this point?
Mr. Speaker, the budget numbers will be coming out soon, and in my brief, I'll be sure to provide all the figures as it pertains to the digitization process, what we spent and what we anticipate spending moving forward.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Does the minister know that number today?
Minister?
I can endeavor to provide that the honorable member with those particular figures. I don't have them offhand.
Okay. The minister has indicated that he'll endeavor to get you the figures you asked for.
Thank you.
Any supplementary or further question?
I have a supplementary, Mr. Speaker. The minister on 10 or the last time he gave us an update, he said that there was a capital budget allocation of some $80,000 for this project. And do we anticipate incurring any further costs, is what I should say. Not how much have we spent so far, but do we anticipate actually further costs up to the March launch date?
Minister?
The capital approved, he is correct, is $80,000. However, I have been informed that the cost has risen above the $80,000 mark, and as we continue to upgrade the system and expand the capabilities of the system, certainly we should expect cost increases. But those cost increases will be funded out of the budget allocation for the Department of Immigration, and our endeavor to ensure that that is clearly articulated when we go through our budget briefs.
Okay. Supplementary? Sorry, that was your second sub. Is there an additional question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Second question?
I'd like to ask, has the ministry, or will the ministry calculate the cost savings from the project, from the automation project?
I believe the honorable members talking about in-house efficiencies, but there will be certainly cost savings as it pertains to our clients, but the cost will be surrounded by supplies as it pertains to us printing paper applications and things of that nature. And so we wouldn't know the cost savings until after the project has commenced in earnest, and we were able to calculate the efficiencies created from 1 year versus previous years.
Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
It's a supplementary.
Is it the view of the minister that it would be a worthwhile exercise to undertake a cost savings analysis after a 1 year period of project automation?
Yes, certainly. I believe if we are saying that we are moving in a more efficient manner, it should be our responsibility to demonstrate the efficiencies that are created by the system. And so certainly what we will do is we will monitor the fees that were the cost of processing applications in previous years versus the cost of processing applications in future years to determine what those efficiencies actually are.
Supplementary?
No, Mr. Speaker, third question.
Third question, go ahead.
Would the Honorable Minister inform this House how much processing time or application processing time we anticipate being cut by the automation project?
Mr. Speaker, and so that will be better answered when we commence the process in earnest and go through all of our trial phases. Right now, if we do an estimation based off trials, it's not an accurate volume. And so the way in which we would be able to determine that is to see how much human resources would be allocated for the volume of applications that actually come in a digital format. The honorable member would have to appreciate that we will want simultaneous digitized application process with paper-based application process at the beginning, and so we would have a stretch of resources at the beginning of the project, and it wouldn't be a proper measure as to the efficiencies that are created in processing times. However, I am certain that as we move to a more digitized and automated format, it will reduce processing times as its last steps that will be undertaken by the staff to process any one application form.
Supplementary?
No further, no supplementary, no further questions. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, those are the only questions that were for you this morning. So thank you both for your participation. The next statement this morning where there's indication of questions is for the Minister of Health. Minister, you have a question from MP Dunkley. MP Dunkley, it's your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honorable Minister, you mentioned on page 2 that the KPMG Advisory Division has supported this work. To date, what fees have been paid for their work in this regard?
Mr. Speaker, I don't have that number in front of me, but I will undertake to provide that to the honorable member, and that will obviously be outlined as well during the budget debate next week, during the budget. But if I can get that information to the honorable member today, I will. But I will ensure that it will be part of the budget statement when we discuss the heads as it relates to health, and particularly the Department of Health. If I can find the answer in a few minutes, I can provide it to him. But in any event, I will ensure that the expenses paid to date. I actually, in addition to that, I believe the fees paid to date are in the public domain, as it was a question that was answered by the Honorable former Minister of Finance a few weeks ago with respect to KPMG's expenses. But in any event, I will ensure that that is part of the budget representations as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary?
That certainly is acceptable, and also as part of a supplementary, if the Honorable Minister could outline in detail the fees going forward to the end of the program.
That was the supplementary.
Yes, that was supplementary. Second question, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Thank you. On page 4 of the 9-page statement, the Honorable Minister outlines the 8 strategic principles. And while all of them are laudable and very important, Most of them are things that would be expected when you're dealing with healthcare, such as focusing on people-centered care, understanding our population's health need. The one that I'd like to ask a question about here during this question period, Mr. Speaker, is bullet point number 4, providing universal access to healthcare coverage. To the Honorable Minister, how will this be done? Who will pay for it? And what will be the involvement of the insurance companies?
Minister?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honorable member for that question. As was indicated in the statement, and when colleagues have an opportunity to actually read through the health strategy, you'll note that providing access to healthcare coverage, which is bullet point number 4, does speak to the need to deal with the unsustainable costs as well as addressing the issue of our improving the health outcomes of our population. At this point, answers to such questions such as the cost and or the particulars as it relates to how that particular bullet point number 4, core option number 4, will be delivered are still matters that have to be considered. What's of equal importance, Mr. Speaker, and I'm hoping that members of the public will adhere to our rallying cry, which is to get involvement from stakeholders, not just the medical community, patient representatives, insurance companies, TUC, international business, and the like, to join with government as we work collaboratively to deliver universal health care that will encompass providing access to health care for our residents at an affordable price, as well as ensuring that we take steps to have a people-centered care focus. So we will be inviting members of the public to collaborate and join with us to work together as we assess that. The providing access to healthcare coverage at bullet number 4 does have some of the details, but we just recognize that there are still a number of questions that have to be answered, which is why we are calling on persons to help to join with us as we move towards this goal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the answer.
Yes.
Which really doesn't answer the specific question. So supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
What's your supplementary? Rephrase it and maybe you get the answer you're looking for.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I've learned that from you. I'll try to do that. To the Honorable Minister, what will be the involvement of the current insurance companies in providing universal access to healthcare coverage?
Mr. Speaker, as we've indicated before, the access to healthcare, universal healthcare, we will be looking to provide essential care to individuals at a cost that can be obtained as well as when it is needed. However, we have always maintained that there will always be a need for supplemental insurance. So the insurance companies will still be able to offer a supplemental benefit. What we will be doing under our healthcare system is providing just the essential benefits that are required for individuals. There will always be a need for supplemental insurance.
Supplemental, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Speaker, so who will pay for the essential level of insurance?
Mr. Speaker, those are matters that have to be determined. We note that the public will obviously, the essential service package will be provided to all members of the public. Insofar as who will pay for it, those are matters that need to be determined by the various working groups that will be established as per the roadmap in the document that was tabled today.
Supplementary?
I believe I've run out of supplementary, so final question.
Final question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Honorable Minister, will government be controlling the essential level of insurance provision?
Mr. Speaker, yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, those are matters that need to be determined following our collaborative approach. It is not envisioned that this would be a government-run program. You'll note that we have the HID, GHI, as well as HIP insurance, HIP, GHI, and Future Care, which are arms of the government. One of the throne speech initiatives, as well as you'll note that it's in the Bermuda Health Strategy, is for us to look at administratively, collaboratively, engaging and administratively connecting the government, the current government policies for economies of scale and the like. However, it is not envisioned that whatever the Bermuda Health Plan and the essential services packages would be run by government. Not at all.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Thank the Honorable Minister for that answer. So it's not envisioned to be run by government. Who will actually run this very important part of this universal health care coverage?
Mr. Speaker, as I've mentioned in this House previously, those are discussions that will be had. If it is envisioned that that would be something that would go out privately to be an RFP, and whoever going through that RFP process is the selected vendor, then that's how we will proceed. But those are matters, it is still too premature for us to be able to provide concrete answers to that. That's all part of the collaboration that we will be asking members of the public to help participate in as we move forward towards our objectives.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister, there's no other member who has questions for you this morning. We thank you both for your participation. The next statement this morning, where members have indicated they have questions, is the Minister of Education. Minister, the MP Jackson would like to put a question to you. MP?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning.
Good morning.
It's just in relation to page 4, where the minister read the email about the Minister of National Security, Renee Ming, just said recently that children as young as 8 years old are being recruited into gangs now. I'm just wondering, what are the minister's plans to address this?
Minister, if you have a question to reference, I'm not minister, member, if you have a question for the statement by Minister Ming, you should have addressed it while she was taking questions. The statement that
it's in the education minister's ministerial statement. I'm just quoting what's on page 4 of the education minister's statement.
Okay, the same information is there, but you started off, you put yourself in thin ice when you made reference to the fact that you're addressing Minister Ming's statement.
Yeah, it was when I said statement, I should have said quoted.
Okay, so you're addressing the content of Minister of Education. We'll continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister?
You didn't finish asking your question.
Yes, I'm just curious what plans you're expecting to put in place to address this situation where we've got 8-year-olds being recruited into gangs.
Again, I can refer back to Minister Ming's statement where she talked about things that are being
I'm going to caution you how you refer to that, Minister, because I just cautioned her for a question.
I know. She's asking what am I putting in place. It was already covered in Minister Ming's statement, and it's not something that the department is putting in place. It's something that the government's putting in place, and that is they are putting in place things to address gang violence. I'm not sure what exactly she's asking for. Does she want a actual program? Does she want something that's very specific? She has to be more specific than that. What's screening for education for?
Well, Minister, it's a concerning quote here that you've included in your statement. And, you know, when you have had no consistent home or school environment for 2 years, the safety net and belonging of a gang is pretty enticing. I'm just curious if we've got 8-year-olds and young teenagers that are vulnerable, what is the education system doing to mitigate or address this declaration that you've added to your statement?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, if I would allow some leeway with the rationale that was put in there, and it also speaks to the mindset of the persons that we are dealing with today. That was put in there because that was a letter received by a private school parent arguing why there should be a different policy in place for private schools versus public schools by intimating that in public schools, our children do not have consistent home or school environments. I'm amazed that went over that member's head, and she's now asking what we're doing to put in place without repudiating the statement that a parent would think
that our children have not had consistent home lives. Who are we to judge that? But Mr. Speaker, I will answer that question. We are putting things in place to address the enticement of gangs at the lower level. As I mentioned, the Minister of National Security is working very hard. And in fact, we did meet previously, we did have meetings on Monday to talk about, and she presented some ideas of what could happen cross ministry to help with her ministry to deal with gang-related activity. But Mr. Speaker, as I said, that statement was a broad statement brought by a parent of a private school student claiming that this is why we should have different policies in place for public and private. So I don't understand how that part was missed, because that was the only reason why I mentioned that part of the statement.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It clearly did not distinguish between who authored that quote within this statement.
Mr. Speaker, can I offer a correction? The statement states clearly, I quote excerpts from emails received.
That doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, her point was that that you did indicate that you received it from a parent, but it didn't say whether the parent was a private or a public school parent.
Actually, it did, Mr. Speaker, but we can move on. The statement was quite clear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Minister, that's the only question. Only member that questions for you this morning. Thank you both for your participation.
Mr. Speaker, I just put something in just as the Minister was answering a question earlier.
Okay. Minister, the Opposition Whip would like to put a question to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Minister, on page 4 of your statement, you said that these emails were a glimpse into the mindset of some of our citizens, and it saddens you. Further, it highlights two Bermuda mindsets some of our citizens harbor. Without agreeing that there are only two mindsets in Bermuda, I do ask, have you reached out to anyone else from this other mindset?
I've responding to the emails as they've received, and as I stated in the statement, where they're increasingly promoting or asking that there be two policies being put in place. I can only reach out to the persons who have emailed me. I can state that I have reached out to the heads of all of our private schools to ask them if this is something that they are aware of, and they've all said no. They do not promote two different sets of rules. They agree that we need to have one set of rules for everybody.
Supplementary?
Great. What is the, and thank you, Honorable Minister, what is the disruption that we would anticipate from this other mindset? Sorry, top of page 5, it says, I am confident mindsets like this will not disrupt the majority of us from doing what's in the best interest. So what disruptions was he speaking about?
Disruptions as in marches, refusing to send children to school, refusing to adhere to the safety guidelines we have in place, those types of disruptions. And the disruption of us marching towards creating a more, looking at what we have in place and creating more balanced, a more balanced approach to the guidelines that we do have in place. As I stated later on in the statement, we are reviewing the phases, we're reviewing the quarantine measures, and we are reviewing the mask wearing. Something on that shortly. So I don't anticipate those types of pushes towards creating separate policies, depending on whether you are at a private school or at a public school, will be something that will distract us from moving forward with what we need to do, and that is create a policy that is confidently keeping our schools for in-school learning, both public and private.
Okay. Supplementary,
Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister assure us that there would be no adverse consequences for anyone who raises an opinion that is framed as an other opinion for the Minister, an other mindset?
I actually don't know how to answer that question, Mr. Speaker, because it is absolutely ridiculous. Everyone is allowed to send in their comments, every comment is read, every comment is taken as we move forward. Some things will be implemented, some things will not. I'm not sure if he's referring to the good old days of the former reiteration of the OBA, where if anyone made a comment against the government when the UBP was in power, that their mortgage will get pulled or they'll be disenfranchised in some sort of way. Perhaps that's what he's referring to. But this government doesn't act. This government doesn't behave.
Minister, let's not have to do all that type of speculation, and let's just deal with questions before us, please. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, and quite honestly, I'm trying to speculate what sort of retaliation he could be referring to. Perhaps he could be more specific.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got the answer to the question. Thank you.
Thank you. No other members have questions for the Minister of Education? The next statement that has questions this morning is a statement from the Minister of Transport. Minister of Transport, MP Jackson. MP Jackson, would you like to put your question to the Minister?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just wondering if the minister would be so kind as to provide any detail on the actual installation of the integrated 60 bus charging station and solar PV project at Fort Langton Depot. Who will actually be installing that equipment, and is there a cost associated?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that is still in the advanced stages of the RFP process, so it would be inappropriate of me to share any other detailed information like that at this time.
Okay.
Supplementary?
And I do not have a supplementary on that. I will just await further information and detail on the company that will be installing the charging stations. No, I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
Yeah. Minister, MP Till, I'd like to put a question to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. Minister, in your statement, it's noted that the new electric buses can travel up to 180 at full capacity. Question, what is the typical distance our existing buses travel on average on any given day?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, on any given day, our buses travel 150 kilometers.
Supplementary?
No, Mr. Speaker, but I have another question.
Second question.
Supplementary?
Somebody has supplementary to the first one?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
We'll take the supplementary to the first question.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate if the minister could put that into miles. He's speaking kilometers, and most Bermudians would not know the conversion of that. They tend to speak in miles. Could he give us that breakdown in miles as opposed to kilometers, please?
Sure. Minister, the question from MP is, can you just put it in a simple miles conversion rather than kilometers, because most medians are still on miles?
You divide 150 by 1.6, which gives you roughly about 100 miles.
Okay. Supplementary? No?
I have a supplementary.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. About how many miles does one bus travel each day for its circuit, its route? You know that, Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that was the question that I just answered. 150 kilometers, or close to just shy of 100 miles.
No, I think the member rephrased the question. The original question, you indicated that the bus itself, the electric bus, would get 180 kilometers or 100 miles. The question now is, what is the normal route that a bus travels each day? Is it under 100 miles or more than 100 miles?
Okay, let me provide some clarification. On page 2, we state that the 180 kilowatt battery has a range of 180 kilometers at full capacity with, and that's with the AC on and full seats. On any given day, our current buses will travel 150 kilometers.
So the electric range is far enough to cover the normal traditional daily route.
The daily route plus 30 kilometers at full capacity.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. No further supplementary. I think, MP Chair, did you still have a second question?
I do, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Minister, thank you, Speaker. Minister, what is the expected lifespan of the batteries of the new electric buses?
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll give you three key numbers. There's a 12-year life expectancy for the vehicle. There is a 2-year complete vehicle warranty, and there's an 8-year electric drivetrain and battery warranty.
Supplementary?
No supplementary, and the end of my questions, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. No supplementaries from anyone else? That brings us to a close of the question period this morning. Thank you all members for your participation. We now move on, and the next item on the order paper this morning would be the congratulatory and obituary speeches, and